Can you talk about magic and what you think of it? I came across a group called the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn from a Facebook ad. They apparently use a lot of magic and rituals and offer to teach magic and spells. What's the difference between Daskalos's work and magic? I just want to say, what's the difference between riding a rocket ship and roller skates? A lot difference. Daskalos was the worst opponent to magic. He did not want to make black magicians, so he withheld information from certain students who he knew would try to use it in that way. But let me just say a little bit about this. Before Christ came, way back a long time ago, all the spiritual seekers had was magic formulas and rituals. They didn't really understand about developing psychonoetically, which is mentally and emotionally. In other words, raising your consciousness and uplifting your self-awareness. So that's all they had. All they had these spells. Now, I'm not going to go into it too deeply, but when you do a magic spell, you're doing it not from yourself, not from your inner self. Your inner self has no need of magic spells. People try to use magic spells to reach their inner self sometimes, but most of the time it's about getting powers and abilities. And they'll do spells and rituals, and the things will happen. It'll really happen. They think, well, this is true. I'm on the right path. But what they do not realize is that there are certain undesirable entities that when they see you do the magic spell, they will make it happen for you. They will heal people for you for the sole purpose of getting you caught into that whole thing where they're doing the work. Now, you don't realize it's the elementals doing the work. You don't realize these entities are behind the scenes making these things happen. But at the end of the day, they come back and then demand something back from you. They've been giving you something for a while, giving you answers and doing all this stuff. It's low level stuff. It's not, Christ consciousness things, but they'll give you information. It seems to be true, and it is true, but it's not. You haven't got there on your own power. These magic formulas. You take the magic formulas away, you'll never get anything again. So what we want is to develop psychonoetically. We want to raise our consciousness, lift our self-awareness. So we go there in our natural way, and we I want to say own it, but we know how to get there. We know how to get back there. It's not depending on something external like a magic formula. It's not depending on something external like a guru who has to take you across to the other side. It's depending upon you making this connection with the inner self, and that's what's making your life work. So magic formulas, Daskalos was against it. He hated it. In fact, there were students who tried to do it this way in his system, and he would shut them down because it just traps the personality in this process they don't really understand, depending on an external thing, and they're really being served by entities. If they saw what they looked like, they would not want to see that. Okay.
As we know, God is almightiness. God can do everything. Then, but we can use this almighty power for good purpose and bad purpose. But we can tell which one is good and which one is bad. The scholar says, magic is magic. No, all brown magic, black magic, everything is magic, which means once we use this divine power for something selfish or something, even though we think of it like for the other purpose, other people's sake, but we have to check this motivation very carefully. Otherwise, even though we feel like we are developing, actually, when we are using this divine power for our own sake, egoistic purpose, or relating to materialistic, earth element, desire things, then even though we feel we are developing, actually we are going down, falling down. But we feel like we are so developed, we become so skillful and so developed, that gives us more egoism. So in this teaching, the scholar says we use this power, divine power, just for healing, helping people purely, sincerely. This is the way to use this power.
Hi, Jeff. Jeff's asking, I read in the Symbol of Life book that some of the archangels like to take the human form and materialize themselves sometimes. I'm just wondering if you have thoughts on what they would be doing in a material body and if there would be a way we could recognize them as archangels. Yeah. What they're doing in the body is they're trying to help us wake up. I mean, they have different jobs, but if one appears to you for no physical reason, they're trying to help you wake up, basically. That's exactly what they're doing. Archangel Michael is the archangel of fire. So sometimes he likes to materialize in a human form. He likes to. Archangel Raphael very much likes to. He loves to come forward when we seek him out. He's the most approachable, I think I can say, of the archangels. He's so willing. He's ready to come when you're ready to try. Same thing about Gabriels. You know, they're about the liquids. So we have fire, energy, air, prana, and liquids. What about the earth element? What archangel is in charge of the earth element? Well, there aren't any archangels in charge of the earth element. The earth element is in charge, is under the control of Shamael, who provides it to the other archangels. But Shamael, when he materializes, now this is an interesting thing. He can be extremely beautiful or extremely ugly. But under no conditions are we at this point in time to try to attune to him, to try to think about him, to try to connect with him. Why? Well, he's a keeper of the duality, the law of cause and effect. So he's hostile to man because man's been hostile to his kingdom. His kingdom is the environment, and we have been destroying it. So he's hostile to man right now. When you become self-realized, no danger in connecting with it all, he'll be a loving brother to you. But as long as we have those kind of things in us that destroy his environment, he feels we're his enemy. So he's opposed to us. He has one hand connected to the archangels, which he's supplying the material stuff to, but he has the other hand connected to some other things that we don't want to be connected to. So it's just best for now not to try to connect to it. What they're doing, like I said, they're trying to wake up, but they also come into hospitals a lot. I have actually seen two in a hospital. But I have a story here from a doctor who was making his rounds late at night, one hospital, and he comes to this room with his patients that's just about to die, and he notices there's a light in there, a big light. He goes in, and he sees an angel standing over the person who's passing right then. And he just says to the guy, to the doctor, that just tells him the truth. Life incarnations, the incarnations in all of our incarnations throughout all of our lifetimes are just gradual steps of self-improvement toward perfection. That's an interesting thing for him to say. Then he said, most severely disabled children are told this and they know this, and it helps them carry their cross of their disability through life much better. And you'll notice some of these severely disabled children, they have the best attitude on life. So they have different jobs and they show up for different things, but a lot of times it's either to protect us, wake us up, or in this case, help us with the crossing.
Okay. In the exercise, you okay?
I'm okay.
In the exercise, when we go in our body and attune with our part of the body, or warmness of, for example, when we attune with the warmness of a body temperature, it's Archangel Michael. No? Then when we attune with the fluid in our material body, we connect with the Archangel Gabriel. And when we feel the movement of the currency, we connect with the Archangel Raphael. Then whenever we try to attune with the movement or the kind of liquidity or heat, we just please try to open your heart. And just like when you love somebody, when you fall in love with someone, you try to understand or try to want to know about the person, right? Just like that, open your heart and try to understand. And one important thing is show your appreciation and relaxation and open your heart. And when you keep your calmness, then sometimes they show up as the figure of the human form. So it's not only in the material body, even if doing introspection exercise, when we feel like a heat, energetic feeling, it shows up. When we try to cool down, Gabriel will show up. But the key is always we have to relax and try to attune, try to understand it, and the appreciation. When we appreciate something, naturally we open our heart, and that makes a bridge between them.
So Eric's asking about the baptism of fire, and if we could say something general about it. It's the second baptism, corresponding with the second crucifixion in the symbol of life work. The first baptism is baptism of water, everybody knows, and it's the baptism for the remission of sins. But I ask you now, why, when they have a little baby who's just born, do they go get it christened and baptized in water for the forgiveness of its sins if it didn't live before? It seems like the church used to acknowledge that. For what's the other reason? The baptism of fire, though, is something much, much different. The baptism of water, minutes, and it's over. The baptism of fire, centuries. Mm-hmm. And when in Pentecost, when the disciples had that flame above their head, they were just beginning to enter the phase of the baptism of fire, which I said, again, last century, so lifetimes. It's a baptism of, it goes along with the crucifixion of your egotism. So it's the baptism of like purifying you of any dross, any heaviness, any egotism that would prevent you to go to the higher states. And then the third baptism is the baptism of spirit. And it's, again, an instantaneous thing. And that you don't reach that one until right before you merge and become one with God again, right before a spirit self-realization. We have the first baptism of fire at the self-realization, permanent inner self-realization, let's say that. Then the baptism of fire happens here, and then the baptism of spirit happens here, when we're talking about the pass on the symbol of life. So you see these three horizontal lines on the symbol of life. Those represents the three crucifixions and the three baptisms that any seeker of truth will eventually go through before they reach God in spirit self-realization. And the first one can be quite painful because it's a crucifixion of your egotism. So it's going to be as painful as you are attached to your egotism. But the second, the next one, this baptism of light, is not. It's there. You're just giving yourself in service to God. So, and the first crucifixion is painful. Second one not. Third one not. The second and third baptisms and crucifixions are actually pleasing. So, we had a whole workshop here, 5 days on that one time. So, there's a lot to it, but we'll just leave it at that for now. And you can talk now. Yes.
Do you want to say more about
I did, but I'm
that?
not going to. I'm okay now. That's good enough.
Okay. At the certain incarnation cycle, we start the baptism of fire. As he says, it's so painful because we have to cleanse completely, much with the quality of God. So we have to really work on, cleansing or emotion thought type of elementals. Instead of that, we have to create more and more creative thought emotional type of elementals. And the experience will come and cleanse and cleanse and cleanse with experiences like burning with fire. So the fire elemental, as originally we came from fire, expressed as fire, and solidified into the material body after cooling down, right? So to ascend, we have to burn all kind of earth elemental, water elemental, and burn and then make ourselves as a pure fire self. To do this process, we really need to cleanse a lot, which means for us, we have impression those experiences as very bitter, painful experiences, mostly. But after overcoming, we express more purified divine nature of God.